Hi folks, I'm back with more videos on the Greek theatre vases for their unit. Today we're going to have a look at the Thesmo vase. This is known as the Schiller painter vase, and the subject matter seems to be from a scene of women at the Thesmophoria, an Aristophanes play. So I've called it the Thesmo vase for short. Okay, it's quite a complicated one, so we're going to compare it to a tragic parallel and have a look at how we would answer a 10 marker on this vase. So if we have a look at the provenance of it, like where is it from, when is it from? It's 4th century, so it's from 380 to 370, and it's South Italian. So it's not contemporary with the plays that we look at, like it's not come out at the same time as the 5th century Greek comedies or the 5th century Greek tragedies. It's something that is based on a reperformance, basically. So if it's South Italian and 4th century, it's less close in time and space to the plays that we have available, but it does show the legacy and the importance of those plays being reperformed elsewhere. It's a really close paratragic scene, so it's part of Aristophanes' Women at the Thesmophoria, and it's a scene that's really mocking another one of Euripides' plays. In this scene, we have a woman holding a crater. So if you look on the left-hand side, there's a lady holding a mixing bowl, a crater, much like the crater vase that we have here. On the right-hand side, we have a man dressed as a woman. This is a character called Nasilicus. So the premise of the comedy then, just to give you an overall impression of what the comedy includes. Euripides is worried that the women are going to put him on trial. So Euripides actually appears in this comedy as a character. He thinks the women of Athens will gather at the Thesmophoria festival and put him on trial for writing offensive plays about women. He tries to convince the tragic poet Agathon to go into the festival dressed as a woman to vouch for him. Agathon refuses, and so Nasilicus, Euripides' father-in-law, does the job for him. And this is at the climax where Nasilicus is found out and he takes one of the women's babies as a hostage to kind of ensure his safety. So with that in mind then, there are a few obvious things we can say before we look at the scene closely. And if the relationship between Thesmo and Telephus is tricky for you, have a look at the video I've linked below on Euripides in Aristophanes' plays. That'll really help you out. It'll help you with the Argone scene in Frogs as well. On the left-hand side, that's presumably meant to be a woman. On the right-hand side, it's Nasilicus in drag. The difference isn't as stark as we would like it to be. Nasilicus has worn longer sleeves to kind of conceal perhaps his arm hair or what have you, and he's worn longer leggings. Although in the scene leading up to this, to get Nasilicus ready, his face is shaven and his pubic hair is singed. So it's a really over-the-top cross-dressing scene. On the left-hand side, we have a woman in a really similar comic mask. So the kind of grotesque ugliness of the comic masks is something that we might find helpful. It gives us a good indication of like the use of props as well. So we have the little dagger instead of a sword, and we have a wine skin, like an animal skin with wine, wearing little baby's boots. So it gives us the idea that really specific props could be developed for specific gags or jokes. And it's that idea of specificity again that we looked at with the birds vase, like what would you actually pay for, what would you commission for the production. If we look at how this compares to the actual scene in Thesmo, Nasilicus speaks to Micah. It's Micah's baby, I think, that he's snatched. And he's still kind of pretending to be a woman, but perhaps not very well. Go ahead, darling, spin me up and spin me down. Now, as for you, young lady, is it? Yeah, let's get rid of this little Cretan cape of yours. And the only one to blame for your death, dear girl, is that mother of yours. When the cape is fully unwrapped, though, that's when Nasilicus decides or realises that he's holding a wineskin and not a baby. Hey, what's this? What's going on here? This isn't a little girl. This is a wineskin with little Persian booties. Oh, you bloody women, drunkards, the lot of you. So the idea of a wineskin being put in place instead of a baby adds a lot of slapstick humour. There's a couple of layers to it, like the women are at a festival. It's a fertility festival, I think, the Thesmophoria, and Nasilicus has presumed that this is a female baby because only women should be there. So he's presumed it's a little girl he's holding. He actually finds out that it's kind of a hip flask, the ancient equivalent of a hip flask. But the paratragic element of this, the bit where this scene mocks tragedy, is when we compare it to Euripides' Telephus. Okay. We mentioned in the Medea Crater video that in Euripides' Telephus, who you can see there holding baby Orestes, is injured by the Greeks when the Greeks were on their way to Troy, and he appears to the Greeks to make a defense speech for the Trojans, because the wound that Telephus sustains can only be cured by the person who inflicted it, and in this case that's Achilles. When he makes this speech, he snatches baby Orestes as a hostage to be taken more seriously. And that's something I'll explore more with you in the video on Acharnians and Euripides. I'm trying to build a bigger picture of Euripides and Aristophanes' plays, because if we understand him as a stock character, it makes this vase easier, but it also makes the Argonne scene in Frogs a lot easier. Even though we don't directly read Thesmo or Acharnians on the unit, that contextual knowledge will really help you hit the top level. So when you look at them side by side, you can see the similarities. Like the altar looks much the same. The stance of Nasilicus is very similar to the stance of Telephus on the right-hand side. What's different is the reaction of the parents. So Micah seems to be running in to catch the blood of her baby, which she knows is going to be the wine. She's not bothered about the wineskin. She's bothered that her wine's going to be spilled. Whereas Orestes' parents look really mortified and they're steaming in to save him. So it's a scene that really evokes Telephus, and there are quotations within the scene of Aristophanes' play that actually echo Telephus. And when the video's right, when I'm talking about that specifically, I'll include those quotations in, and I'll link that video below. But for the purposes of studying this vase, it is quite helpful on a few different levels. So it shows us that in the 4th century, there was an awareness of Euripides' tragedies and Aristophanes' comedies, to the extent that a joke like this could land and be popular and be understood. To understand the way that Aristophanes mocks Euripides, we have to be familiar with Euripides. That's why it can be really difficult for us as modern readers to pick up on this mockery of Telephus, because we don't have that play. So this shows that actually in the 4th century, audiences were familiar with both genres and that both genres were being reperformed. It shows us they were familiar with both plays then, the women at the Thesmophoria, but also the Telephus, because otherwise a different aspect of this play could have been chosen for artwork. For example, when Nasilicus undergoes his cross-dressing scene, that would have been a really comical image for a vase, but here it's the scene in which tragedy is mocked that becomes the most important. So if you were answering a 10 marker on this, you could say it's helpful in so much as it reflects the way that Greek comedy mocks Greek tragedy. It's helpful in that it shows the popularity of Greek comedy into the 4th century and into southern Italy. And it might reflect re-performances of Aristophanes' play itself. It's helpful because we do have women at the Thesmophoria, and we have the luxury of comparing the scene in a way that we don't have for the Telephus vase when we just look at Euripides' Telephus on its own. So although it's later and it's from southern Italy, this vase can teach us quite a bit about women at the Thesmophoria in particular, and the relationship between comedy and tragedy a little bit more broadly. And we'll develop that understanding a bit more when we look at the way Euripides appears in Aristophanes' plays. Okay, folks, I hope that's been helpful for you. I'll keep going with the vase videos. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to keep the channel going.